Today I'm going to be going through the Ontario Liberal Party leadership debate that was aired on just a couple weeks ago, and just going to be looking at they say anything interesting, and then my response to it as it goes. I'm only going to be showing brief clips from the debate, not the whole thing. If you want the whole thing, you're going to have to see that on your own. So the first thing that strikes me is the just very self-conscious multiculturalism. They've got a Chinese guy, an Indian guy, a white woman, a white male, um, and I just think that's kind of funny. Funny that they've got like all their token people out, vying for the leadership.
Under Doug Ford, people are struggling in this province. They're struggling to find family doctors or nurses. Kids are struggling in overcrowded classrooms. Young people are working 2 or 3 jobs and struggling to pay rent or buy groceries. People are looking at Ontario Liberal Party to come forward with practical solutions to make their lives easier to live.
Yeah, exactly. Our public healthcare system sucks. Our public school system sucks. That's what government monopolies do. They get worse and they get more expensive. And yeah, people are struggling with the cost of living because the economy has been overtaxed and overregulated for way too long because inflation, I mean, not that this is really the fault of the Ontario government, but inflation is out of control. Um, the economy is definitely partly they're to blame. You've had uh, government spending, outrageous government spending for the longest time, huge amounts of sub-sovereign debt. Ontario has more debt than basically any other jurisdiction that isn't a country in the world. Uh, so yeah, people are struggling. They're struggling because of your policies. They're struggling because of the terrible healthcare system that we have. I mean, uh, we have consistently some of the worst results among OECD members. If you look at objective metrics like doctors per 100,000 or hospital beds per 100,000, Canada is just across the board. It's failing badly. Um, you look at wait times, and you know, okay, maybe we don't have to adopt the complete free market approach that I would suggest, but at least we should have a two-tiered system like France, like Germany. That is working a lot better because you take uh, you take a lot of the pressure off the public system by allowing rich people to pay for better care, and then the queues at least go down a bit in the public system. Um, but we have to. I mean, let's face facts. The system as we have it presently isn't working as well as it should be, as well as other countries. Um, Aside from like the UK, which has a similar setup, it's our healthcare system just sucks. People are stuck in waiting lists. You go to the emergency room, there's a 12-hour wait to see a doctor, and we need to look into some alternatives. And yes, we need to have a flourishing private sector, at the very least, alongside the state option.
Software. What makes you think you can chip away at that bridge of trust, which he has apparently built, to enough of the electorate to win two straight elections?
Well, let's be honest about the last election. The last election, people said Doug Ford wasn't as bad as we thought he was going to be, and they were looking around, they didn't see a positive alternative that was motivating them to get out and vote as against Doug Ford. And he wasn't Jason Kenney, he wasn't a Republican governor, and they gave him a free pass. And there's going to be no free pass. After the corruption of the Greenbelt, you've got people rightly frustrated about lack of access to family doctors.
Okay, here's the thing about the Greenbelt. Like, this was a retarded idea. Why would you put this limit on the amount that the city can grow a limit on where jobs can be built, where you can have industrialization, um, businesses. I mean, obviously, Toronto needs to grow and expand. It's the largest city in Canada. There's a massive amount of land there. Um, you have other cities nearby that it can connect with. And well, why do you think housing is so expensive? Because sure, there's too much restriction on zoning, right? There shouldn't be any restriction on zoning. You should be able to build whatever you want. If it's it shouldn't all be single family homes, but but at the very least, let's start expanding and building more houses in the Greenbelt area instead of just. I mean, what this is it's the environmentalist idea that the ultimate given is you need to have nature. Nature is perfect, and anything man does to improve his condition by altering his environment is somehow immoral. No, I mean that's absurd. We need to develop. We need to transform the green belt from what it is, which is basically just a waste, into more houses, into more factories, into different businesses, commercial lots, you know, and yeah, you should build communities that people maybe don't have to commute 2 hours into work from, but absolutely, we should be developing the green belt, and it was just a ridiculous idea in the first place, put in place by anti-growth, anti-prosperity, environmentalist politicians, leftists who think that they know best, and they're going to tell everybody how they should live their lives and what they should do with their property in accordance with some grand scheme. So, uh, Doug Ford was 100% right to start chipping away at that to allow development in the green belt. I don't know if there was corruption there, if his developer friends made a lot of money. Uh, that could be the case. I haven't looked into it, but the fact is the green belt's got to go. We need more development. Um, these are just anti-growth policies. I mean, why do leftists just spit in the face of human progress and human prosperity? Don't they want people to be better off? Don't they want people to have better jobs, higher paying jobs? How about uh, affordable housing? It's got to be built, and if it's going to be built, the land's got to be available for it to be built on. I mean, yes, we could do more with regards to upgrading the existing housing stock. But at the same time, it doesn't really make sense to tear down perfectly good housing just to build more housing that's of a higher density. That's not economically prudent. When you could be expanding, building new housing. We got all these immigrants coming in, million a year. They got to live somewhere, even if it is 5 people to a bedroom. So let's, yeah, this is, the liberals are just on the wrong side of this issue. They should get on board with development in the green belt and expanding the residential, industrial, commercial base, and we should get rid of zoning in the first place. I mean, it's just a way for people to get these artificially high property values. Everything's zoned single family, which is great if you're a homeowner, but if you're somebody who's trying to rent, that's not very affordable. So companies should be allowed to develop the land however they want, and we need less restriction from government, less less government control, less leftist intellectuals thinking that they know best how everyone should run their lives. Let people run their own lives. Let businesses make their own decisions about the land that they own, that they purchase, that they're developing, what they want to build. If it's condos, if it's apartment buildings, if it's triplex, duplex, single family, let the market dictate, what people can afford, what can be built, and we wouldn't have such a housing crisis. We wouldn't have such an affordability issue and there'd be more jobs too. So all this greenbelt prohibition on expansion is doing is impoverishing the Canadian people to placate a bunch of hysterical environmentalists. And props to Doug Ford for shutting that down.
Question. Doug Ford got less than 18% of voters to vote for him. What we have
So
is
just explain that. He actually got 40.
Right, but turnout was so low. Turnout
Yes.
was so low that the actual number of voters who voted for him was less than.
Yeah, so basically, nobody supports any of your bullshit political parties. Um, as you said, the winner only got 18%. You guys got even less. So maybe stop trying to plan the economy and run our lives when there's only a tiny fraction of the public that actually supports your nonsense proposals.
Protecting the greenbelt and the environment. And I'm glad Mayor Crombie is unequivocal today. I think there was a challenge at the outset when she had said she was open to land swaps, and there was rightfully pushback. And we're all united now in saying that we are there to protect the greenbelt. Now, it obviously, though, to a housing issue. Why was there any...
I love how polite Canadian politics are. Even when you're taking a swipe at somebody, it's very polite. I'm glad we're all on board now, sort of thing. God, this debate is brutal. That was like 25 minutes where they didn't talk about policy at all. Just, liberals are good, Doug Ford's bad, I'm so awesome, blah, blah, blah. Nothing substantive. I mean, just the worst discussion imaginable. I challenge you to watch it yourself. Actually, this Indian guy making more sense than any of them.
Right now, that either driving Ubers or working in a lab, I will make sure that they're practicing medicine in Northern Ontario, in rural Ontario, and other parts of the province.
Ted Chu.
I mean, he's barely even Indian. Like, this guy's, what is he, second, third generation? I mean, very little accent.
One idea on healthcare.
I'm for team-based primary care.
So yeah, that's a huge issue in Canada is that we have foreign trained doctors who don't meet the rigorous standards of the Canadian Medical Board or whatever, so they're not allowed to practice. And this is just part of the problem with socialized medicine, and also with restrictions on the supply. So when the government is paying all the bills, then they have to be kind of strict on licensing so that they're not paying some fraud or whatever. But if you had a market in healthcare, then consumers could decide whether Jake Deeb's diploma from Baghdad University or whatever was worthwhile or not, and other hospitals, other medical practitioners can decide as well. They can interview him, get an idea as to his competency, because obviously no hospital wants to get a reputation as being incompetent in a market economy where they have to compete for consumers. So that would be probably the main check on frauds, but still on allowing foreign trained doctors or other people like nurse practitioners who can handle a lot of the more basic cases. Yeah, we have a huge problem with that in Canada. I don't. He said he's going to get them stop them driving Uber and get them practicing medicine. But how? What's your? I mean, and that's the sole debate. There's been nothing substantive really discussed. Proposals. It's all greenbelt and Doug Ford's corrupt and the liberals. Everybody loves the liberals now. I mean, it's bullshit. But so what's your proposal for actually getting all these people who have skills and experience working overseas? Now they're living in Canada. They're driving cabs. They're working at Tim Hortons or whatever. How do we get them in the marketplace? And the libertarian solution is quite simple. Let them practice. Don't have occupational licensing. Let consumers decide. Let the hospitals that they'd be working in or the medical offices decide if they're competent. But what's your solution, Liberal Party?
Health homes. Team-based because we can get our physicians and nurse practitioners to spend more time taking care of patients and less time on administration, data processing. And geographic health homes, that's making sure that everybody has access to primary care.
All right. I don't really have anything to say about that, but you had some ideas, so at least somebody's got some ideas.
Family health teams and the need to address the huge gap in access to primary care and family doctors overall. But I would emphasize where there's a very clear difference, and we're going to have ambition where they've completely failed, is around mental health and addictions. You've got a Ford government that has fought against evidence-based harm reduction. You've got a government that has underinvested in on-demand treatment, and that's what we need to get people the help that they need when they need it. And lastly, a government that doesn't take homelessness seriously. You see encampments in every community.
Yeah, but what do you mean by harm reduction? You want to turn Toronto into Vancouver, or I mean, yeah, we have some serious issues and they need to be dealt with. But a lot of the leftist policies, liberal policies, like in Vancouver, are just failing terribly. You got they're giving out free drugs and all the welfareism too. All the welfare checks are going straight for drugs, and you have these areas in Hastings, where it's crazy. They just it, it's like a third world country over there. It's all drug addicts and pushers and I used to be in favor of harm reduction. Sure, give them a safe place to shoot up or whatever. Try to cut back on the overdoses, but um, but are these policies working in the more progressive regions like Vancouver? Are they making things worse? Maybe you do have to take sort of more of a tough love approach, try to get them sober. I think we're all in agreement that it's a social and a medical issue, not one that calls for um, law enforcement, like throwing junkies in jail. I don't think anybody's really in favor of that. Uh, but but I'm not sure harm reduction policies are the way to go either. Maybe just rehab. Um,
This province, you've got municipalities that are screaming for provincial leadership. And if we deliver a public health approach, grounded in evidence-based harm reduction, treatment options, and housing, we will not only save lives, we will also protect public safety by delivering public health.
One approach.
in case it wasn't clear, that last clip he was talking about homelessness, and homelessness is a huge problem. But I think one thing that never gets addressed is the regulations that exacerbate the issue. So um, why don't we have flop houses? Why don't we have inexpensive places where poorer people can rent a room? Maybe it's not great, you have to share a bathroom or whatever, but there's a room for $5, $10 a night or whatever, $200 a month. Isn't that better than living on the street? But flop houses are prohibited because of, well, nobody wants a flop house in their neighborhood. It's all this not in my backyard attitude. Um, he says housing first, but why should the taxpayer foot the bill at $1,000, $2,000 a month? They're putting these guys up in hotels, and they're causing all sorts of damage, and it's not a long term fix anyway. So why make the taxpayer pay instead of just allowing for a more market based solution where you get rid of these regulations that prevent low cost rooming houses, flop houses, that used to be a way for some of these more marginal people to stay housed. Um, I do think a housing first approach is sound, but at the same time, we can't just be throwing taxpayer money away on these people. Um, And also we should look at eliminating the minimum wage so that more of these, maybe they're mentally disturbed, maybe they don't smell the greatest, but they can still find some employment at some rate, and contribute to society, pay for their own flop house. Um, so I think there are things we can do to address this problem, um, without just throwing a bunch of money at it. Steps that don't cost any money, in particular, legalizing flop houses, eliminating the minimum wage, and that will help some homeless people um, get back into society, stop being homeless, and have a real life. Um, you know,
From the current government?
Well, I think we're all on the same page. More community-based health care, wraparound care, as Nate has talked about, a team-based approach that Ted has talked about, not only foreign trained doctors, but I think we're all on the same page. Community-based health care, wraparound care, as Nate has talked about, a team-based approach that Ted has talked about, not only foreign trained doctors, but more domestically trained doctors. So that would mean more residency spaces. It would mean another medical school, at least one more, particularly in the north, that would include more French language.
yeah, more residency spaces, more medical schools. That's just common sense. But I'll give it to you. That's a good idea. Solid idea. I mean, we need more doctors. Canada does not have enough doctors per 100,000 people, whatever metric. I'll note that so far in the debate, not one of these people has had one proposal for where to cut government spending, how to rein in government spending, whatever. It's just not interested. They're not interested in that at all. They have absolutely no plan on doing anything like that.
Again, one of the huge numbers in the budget. Nate Erskine-Smith, one idea on education that would distinguish you from the current government.
They are massively underinvesting in special education assistance. And
Gee, what a surprise! The Liberal wants to spend more taxpayer money. Uh, that's their solution to everything. Just spend, and that's why we have the debt levels that we do.
in every community you're in, and some are more underserved than others. But across the board, we are not giving our kids the best chance to succeed if we underinvest inside the classroom. We talk about capping class sizes, but it really is about a real investment in special education assistance.
Ted Chu.
But I mean, that makes no sense anyway. Why spend a bunch of money on a bunch of kids who can't even get an education in the first place? Um, I mean, it just goes to show that the public education system has nothing to do with education, and it's a massive indoctrination slash babysitting scheme, so that both parents can go out and work and pay the taxes to finance all the profligate government spending of the liberals, both federally and provincially. Um, and what we really need is to just shut down the public education system and have a free market in education. What with the way technology is progressing, you've got tools like Khan Academy that are basically a curriculum good to go, updated in one place easily. Um, so I think absolutely the private sector can outperform government schools here. Homeschooling is increasingly an option as well, and a superior one, because the ideal uh, the ideal situation is a tutor. That is, you have one teacher and one student, and that occurs in homeschooling, or two or three uh, students to one teacher. So homeschooling very effective, can be effective, especially with the internet today. You have whatever resources you need right in the palm of your hand: videos, multimedia, textbooks, Wikipedia, all the information you need, and it's really important too to be teaching people how to research and things on their own, as opposed to simply sitting in a classroom and passively absorbing what the teacher tells them. Teach people how to think critically, how to evaluate various sources, and there's just so much room for innovation in the educational sector. But because we have a monolithic centralized system where basically every school across Ontario is the same, teaching the same methods, and using massive class sizes, and they're not even failing people anymore. They just graduate them, even if they're not doing the work, even if they didn't understand anything, and everything's dumbed down to the lowest common denominator, because it's not really about unleashing the inherent creative potential of the human mind. It's not really about teaching our children how to engage in a lifetime love affair with learning. It's about promoting authority and obedience, and sit in this chair for 8 hours a day, and um, do what the teachers tell you to do, obey the authority figure, and a lot of it's pointless. So we also need to get into more vocational training at an earlier age. Let people gain work skills. Let people start working at 13 or 14, not 40 or 50 hours a week, but 4 or 5 hours a week. Let them shadow somebody out at a job. Let them, start picking up some weekend shifts at an earlier age, so that they have that job experience. And let's get vocational training. When people are 14, 15, let them start learning a serious skill, so that when they're 18, 19, they go out into the world. Um, and especially, we got to rethink post-secondary education, which is just a massive grift, uh, a massive employment scheme for Marxist intellectuals and statists. I mean, most of the people in college don't even really want to go there, don't even have the capacity for higher level thought. A lot of them are partying it up on the taxpayer dime, on the parents' dime, and not really getting much value out of the courses. A lot of them would be more suited for strict vocational training. Learn a skill, learn a valuable skill. Not everybody's an intellectual. That's fine. We're all different capabilities, but somehow there's this tableau rasa of philosophy and education, that you can completely ignore biology and human nature, and the fact that we are genetically different in terms of capabilities and interests, and this leads to problems with classes that have to be dumbed down to the lowest common denominator, especially because the teachers, they don't want to be failing everybody and reflecting poorly on them. So bottom line, no, we don't need to waste more government money on special education. I mean, what is the difference if some 15-year-old can read some of I See Spot Run or not? I mean, that's not what a school is about. It's supposed to be about the education of normal people. I don't think we need to blow a lot of money on special education, which is really just glorified babysitting. The whole thing is just glorified babysitting. What we should do is just privatize the educational system entirely and have free market in education.
I've had numerous experts in this studio over the years, And I've asked them, if you had $1 billion burning a hole in your pocket, would you spend it on reducing class sizes? And none of them would. They say it's kind of, it's a shiny bauble in the window that parents love, but in terms of outcomes, it actually is not money well spent. You still want that as a priority on your list?
I think that when you have teachers saying, I have 33 kids or something like that, there's definite, the teachers keep saying, I can't take care of my kids because the class size is too big. And I'm sure you can target it. I think there are areas where, schools in disadvantaged areas where you can get a bigger bang for the buck in terms.
The thing is, you're in within the public school system, you're in a Zweigling. It's a chess term where any move you make worsens your position. It's a German term. I don't know the pronunciation, but the thing is, it doesn't matter how much money you spend. You're not going to get better results because the problem's systemic. The problem is you have a government monopoly, so there's no incentive to ensure that you have high quality at a reasonable cost, like if you had market competition between farmers, between automobile manufacturers, etc. So all that money is just going to end up going to the salaries of administrators or teachers or um, but absolutely class sizes are a huge issue. I don't know what Steve Paikan and these so-called experts are talking about. It's going to make a real difference. Um, maybe $1 billion isn't much in the scheme of public education in Ontario because it's so expensive. Also because we're dealing with a 15 million population. But if you went from 20 people to 33 or vice versa, I mean, that's going to make a huge difference. Obviously, the teacher can teach better with fewer students. They can keep track of what kids are learning what and what do they need to know, and they can calibrate their lessons a little better, or could if they weren't forced to teach strictly from the curriculum. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for tuning in to my reaction to the Liberal leadership debate 2023. Not a lot of red meat in there for libertarians, as I guess you could expect from a social democratic party such as the Ontario Liberals. But we'll see. Canadian politics always interesting. We'll see what happens with the next election. Will Doug Ford get reelected? Will he transform the Greenbelt into one giant megacity from sea to shining sea? Who knows? Until next time, take care.